Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you can see, I have with me Lieutenant General PG Kamath, who's going to tackle with a very, very big and a very broad subject that a lot of us might not know is probably a threat to the way that the world works today. Globalism and the globalists. Sir, thank you so much, firstly, for preparing a very heavy subject, as I just said. And I don't think the actual impact of this globalism movement has been understood to its totality. So, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aadi. The weather in the entire South India has become very cold. That's more because of certain disruption in the climatic and climatic changes. And also, globalism is the right topic to speak today because the impact of its weather and climate is being seen by me now.
Absolutely, sir. I think you've nailed it right at the beginning, if I may say that. So, but to begin and give our viewers a basic understanding of what we are wanting to talk about, what is the concept of globalism and what are the main actors uh, that basically started the beginning of this concept and the proponents that we see in front of us today, sir?
Adi, I have a slightly different view on this. I feel it is not a geo-economic event which has been planned, conceived, and then executed. I feel it is one eruption which has taken place due to certain developments in transportation and communications, due to which it is a event which has gone unbridled because initially people took full advantage of it, both the developed countries and the developing countries. So it is actually a blowout of a human dynamism and enterprise which has taken place. Now, why? I will tell you. Let me go. I will not restrict the globalism right to the recent times of the last quarter of last century, where the information revolution took place and took hold of globalism and catapulted it into the sky. Before that, let me say, when did the first thing start? When the Homo sapiens originated in Africa, Homo erectus, and started moving across the globe, is the first step of globalism, if you really ask me.
Hmm.
Then later, when the discovery of continents took place, the world became smaller. America, India, Australia, all these islands, continents were discovered. Then the third aspect of globalism was when the slave trade and the spice trade started. You see how the world is getting knit together in with the development of communications. Then the industrial revolution, the trains and the rolling stock with the steam engine and the steamers, steamships, which came into being. And then the colonization started. So you see how the world, the human greed is actually what it called bonding the entire world into what all. And then one more thing which we all miss out on globalization, Adi, is the First World War. A world war took place. 28 countries joined the First World War. Isn't it a global event which has taken place? A part of globalism which has developed over a period of time to the present times. Then what about the Second World War? 50 countries took place, but participated in the country. Then what about the atomic weapons? It's a global weapon which came into being, yet it changed the entire dynamics of the geopolitics and geostrategy in the entire world. Isn't it also a globalization? Then, third, one event which took place between the two wars, the Great Depression between
Hmm.
29, 30, 31, right up to, if you say 30, 1939, you know the global GDP went down by 26% due to this Great Depression. So we have to understand. And then what you call globalization is where you are politically also trying to merge at one point the different countries. And if you really ask me, the first thing took place was in 1648 in the Treaty of Westphalia. What happened in Treasury? About 700 principalities, countries, whatever they were, small, small groups, not all countries, joined together in order to say a country, big or small, they have got only one vote and will not interfere in each other, was a first political ruling or a political dicta or a political request which was accepted by generally by the countries of let's say mostly Europe, in which they said this is what will govern our interstate relations.
Nation states.
After First World, what about the League of Nations? Is the first formal attempt to have a formal world global government. Then, after Second World War, what about the United Nations organization, though a toothless organization, which has flawed it so badly that unfortunately it has become a talking shop. But all the same, the institutions of the United Nations organization are doing their job to the best of their ability. Sans they do not have any political authority. Because without a overarching political authority over the countries, then what you are doing is only requesting and where power equation stands. And I will tell that I have dealt politically. Let us look at the economic globalization. Was the first one in 1944 when Bretton Woods conference. 44 countries joined together and said our currency exchange will be gold standard, and from there gave birth to what you call IMF and IRDB, which became later the World Bank. So this is the origin of economic globalization, which really started. Then there were a number of pacts, political and strategic pacts, OECD, the Warsaw Pact, the NATO, the ASEAN, the SARC, OPEC, CENTO, SEATO, AUKUS, Quad, whatever you want to say, SCO, OAU,
Mm.
all these, if you really see the groupings within the globe, which is actually trying to get into a globalized mode in some way regulating the political conduct and economic policies of the world over into one. Now, the real globalization, if you see the explosion, fulmination took place, it is in the last quarter of the last century, 20th century, when the information revolution, the internet, the digital world, the world getting the information in seconds going across, the market explosion, which was a consequent to that, which took place, where the suppliers could get so many markets and the markets could get enough suppliers. You know, the demand and supply where it crossed the transnational boundaries and gone across the globe, and the trade flourished, crossed land frontiers. What about the digital seamless transfer of money, SWIFT? Today, anywhere in the world, millions and millions of dollars can be transferred within a period of, say, almost real time, within 20-30 minutes, the money goes. So you do a transaction, I don't wait for a check or a draft to arrive. It takes place. Look how the ease of market forces, the demand forces, the supply forces, the suppliers across the world, and the demand persons who are wanting the goods across the world can connect with each other. It will naturally spur the market forces to that level, that level. And all this, if you see concept, we have made a world where it has where we can exploit the entire natural resources of the country, create demands, supply, and the world is trying to bond itself politically and economically, but with lot of cost that we can deal later. So this I feel is the concept of a general concept of globalization.
Thank you for that, sir. I think you've very eloquently mentioned the advantages as well, and that is something which is interesting because there are indeed a lot of advantages to this game, as you said, seamless seamless travel, seamless exchange of money, trade, um, joining together of people, I think, for a common purpose in the world. And that's something that we've been able to achieve by a global, family sort of a setting. Having said that, sir, you've hinted certain amount of advantages. I'd like you to kind of dwell on that a little further
Yeah.
and talk about certain blowbacks that have come across because of this. Uh, the concept itself is very pure. There's no question, sir. So, how do you kind of see it being muddled in terms of the disadvantages today? So, let's kind of go towards that, sir.
Yes, Adi, you are absolutely right. Everyone took the fruits out of this globalization. Let's take China, for example. More than 300 million came across the poverty line.
Yeah,
And just to tell you, there was a 9% growth almost for 8 to 9 years, or 10 years, 20 years, rather 20 years, almost 9% growth. If you take the statistics from 1980 to 2021, see, this is 41 years. The GDP of China grew 92 times, not 92%. 92 times means 9,200% it grew. You see the phenomenal growth. India also had around 6-7% growth. We crossed that so-called the Hindu rate of growth, 1%, 2%, 2.5%, which we were proud of. And we came to 6-7%, and about 100 to 150 millions came into the middle class. So, growth of the middle class, the higher consumption which took place, is one of the things which did take place in this. We have, see, the rich nations also yielded the fruits out of this globalization. It was a imagine globalization is a huge tree. Poor nations picked up fruit from it, and rich nations picked up fruit from it. Developing nations picked up fruit from it. All benefited in the initial because it was a short-term gains which everyone were getting. So that's fine. So no one is a saint out here that is a philanthropist. He wanted to do with his altruistic feelings, wanted to bring up the country, bring up the world. That was not the intention by anyone, neither by the developed countries or anyone. So free trade agreements came in a big way, Adi, in this. So we'll move trade, offshoring of industries, that my industries moves to different places where more raw materials are available. Instead of getting, let us shift the industry there. Where cheap labor is available, instead of getting the labor, let's move offshore the industries there. Where the markets were around, instead of taking them across the Atlantic or Pacific, you come and make your industry there because the markets are available there. Export markets. Energy, power supply is not an issue. Government rules and regulations are not an issue. So a lot of offshoring of industries took place from the main, from that, let's say, US and Europe and all, which were the, what you call, which suffered with the higher industrialization. They came with the offshoring. Then transnational student educations also. Many students moved across the globe, and Chinese, lakhs and lakhs of Chinese students moved across to US in order to get their doctorate and also get embedded in the system in order
System.
to steal technology there later. It was a well planned by the Chinese. I will give specific example. In case I forget, you please remind me that they went into this and got into important organizations and stole the technology in order to bring up China. See, China took advantage, tremendous advantage of this globalization. The integration of economies took place. Integration of financial sectors world over take place. Interdependence between the nations increased. Stock markets were vibrant. It's a real time stock market. You can buy and sell the stocks in the real time across the globe. Where did you ever think of it before this internet revolution? Free market forces were vibrant across the world, getting the markets down, the prices down, where you are exploiting the core competency of each nation in order to produce goods. Here cheap labor is there, you exploit them and or utilize them, let me say. And
Hmm.
that's how the overall fast moving commercial goods manufacture, their prices come down. And when the prices come down, even why the Chinese goods flooded the US markets, why? Because they were cheap goods. Who wants to buy a costlier fast moving commercial goods than one? The and which affected also the wages of Western countries depressed because of the overall unilateral. Just like water flows from a higher level to lower level, wealth also flowed to certain extent from richer countries to the small to the developing countries. So if you see, world was a homogeneous lot. All nations accepted the goodies of globalization. But then, as you rightly said, there were two or three things happened. Poverty was alleviated, agreed, across the world. See, who wants to have a world globe with so much of disparities? When there is so much, the migrations will start. All illegal migration is due to poverty. And the illegal migrants who come into Europe, US, and all, they are disrupting, destroying the existing civilization with their own mode of habits and mode culture. It is not. You ask any Europeans, are they happy with the unbridled illegal migrants who have come across from the Middle East, from Syria, from other Levant, and all these who have come during that wars in the middle when the Middle East was in turmoil? The entire disruption of societies have taken place. The criminal graph has gone up. The entire cultural contradictions have erupted in the society in day to day lives. I think that no one is, but at the same time, it has alleviated the poverty, given more purchasing power to the poor people. Poor people have become middle class, created greater demands. And greater demands means greater consumption of fast moving commercial goods. That means greater exploitation of the earth. But I am not justifying that people have to remain poor in order to see the earth is not exploited. It has to be sustained. It has. All poor have to become moderate rich. That is what we aspire. But at the same time, the fast, it has become so fast that it has exploited the earth also. Because of the inequality has become what you call become lesser. So the consumerism as a whole has taken hold of. Then offshoring of assets had taken place. When the offshore assets took place, there was China. China, India, Brazil, Vietnam, and all took advantage of this offshoring of assets. Yet all developing of software, technically qualified persons going across the globe and earning money and US campaigns in Iraq and in Afghanistan took a severe toll. Yeah, of course, there was a $3 trillion were spent. By the way, that is. So if you really see, you can't call anyone hegemonist or someone. Everyone exploited the situation. Then was the time when the West realized that their wages are getting depressed because cheaper goods are produced elsewhere and their markets are dying. At the same time, their large scale unemployment is taking place. That's why America turned over. They said no Americanism before globalism. Huh? We have to take care of ourselves. Then the visa restrictions all started. These are all, see, had you really thought over the entire gamut of globalization right from the beginning, you would have probably not done this knee jerk reactions by management, by crisis, which it takes place, Huh? And that's how you, so, but at the same time, uh, all said and done, when the US came into Afghanistan, when they left Afghanistan, unfortunately, the Taliban is taken over. They poured in a lot of money and they created the Afghan National Army, they created a democracy, they brought in women empowerment, they made a working democracy. If the Afghan National Army did not really do their job, there is very little what. US can do, and handed them over to the terrorist and left, unfortunately. So if you really see, there are lot of things have happened in terms. Then let's take China. China has taken a huge toll. Intellectual property rights. I'll just give you. We generally glibly taught that China has stolen technology. Now you know the US has recently, out of so much of globalization, had put sanctions on China on semiconductor and chip technology, which has been done recently. You know that. Do you know that is there is a ASML Holdings, a Netherlands firm, Dutch, which makes them most effective and most complex chip manufacturer in this world.
Indeed. Hmm.
Yeah. Now what has happened? Chinese went into employment there, and one of their engineers, by the name of Zhong Chan Yu, was working in Extal Inc. He was an employee. He was who is worked in this Dutch firm, opened a firm called as Edstyle Inc. and Dongfang Jingyang. And 2 million lines of source code were stolen from their computers. And he made his own company. And they lost a suit, okay, in the court. The Edstyle lost the suit and were told to pay $845 million. So what did straight away Excel applied for bankruptcy? So China took over so much of chip industry source code by stealing technology. And it was a very planned way by which they took advantage of the globalization by sending Communist Party members into these countries and getting into the jobs and then stealing. It was a well planned, nationally planned operation which the Chinese did. So US has also put sanctions and this one. Now, coming to certain things which you told, see, Adi, you told me what are the drawbacks now? It has got overextended. Now you have overextended and it is not reversible also. You can't reverse the whole thing. It's like a jelly bag. You push it from other end, it comes out of the other end. You push there, it comes out here. Because interdependence has created so much. You can only regulate it, control it, and minimize it. But to stop globalization due to the adverse effect is out of question. Okay. Now see China. Reforms of Deng Xiaoping took place in 78 80s, early 80s. Then, and where I blame, when the capacity of China increased, it did the expansion in South China Sea. You see the globalization, the IT explosion, and Chinese expansion. Almost all three coincided in the last quarter of last century. And initially, it started in 95, expansion of South China Sea. In the first decade of the 21st century, they had not only established, captured, and all made extended, built artificial islands, made harbors, runways, and took a complete takeover of South China Sea during this time. How is it happening? Because, and then the Chinese went on what you call as a economic predatory hunting expedition all across the globe. Again, OBR initiative 2012. What is OBR? It's a globalization to take their products across the globe. So they gave loans. They gave loans to poor countries for what? To buy Chinese goods. Means the money comes back to them. Then they did infrastructure development. Who? Chinese engineer and workforce came there and only gave trinkets to the local people and did the industries. When the smaller nations were not able to pay for it, they took the strategic returns, like the Hambantota port, 99 years from the Sri Lankans. You see, a 99 years strategic assets being given to them. They bribed small leaders and decision makers. Don't you know, in our own country, the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, the money was given in order to see that the government is under their control, because all decision makers were under that particular party. World's low income group owed 37% of all their debts to China. World Bank report of 2020 says 97 countries owe Chinese debt. I am just trying to tell you the figures. These are all not my own, please. I am just trying to give out what it is. And because this Ambantota, that Yuan Wan sits, that surveillance and spy ship comes there every time whenever we launch missiles from our Orissa coast. Maldives, 30% of its GDP is Chinese debt. Pakistan, $77.3 billion Chinese debt. Djibouti, where the 80% of GDP of Djibouti is Chinese debt, and hence they have taken a base very next to the American base there in Djibouti, and the first overseas base of China. Ecuador, I am talking of globalization only, how the entire thing has been exploited. So who are the hegemonists? The Chinese are very chary if we call them hegemonist. But what has happened? If you really see, Ecuador, 80% of their oil production till 2024 has been given to China for $6.5 billion loan. Our entire oil is going. Argentina had given a the leased land tax free to China. And now the Chinese have constructed a base there, and the access and oversight of Argentina has not been given. They told you can't, we'll do what you want, and you using it for defense purposes. Angola's debt, $36.3 billion. Ethiopia, $7.9 billion. Kenya, $7.4 billion. Sri Lanka, $6.8 billion. What the chaos, what has taken place, we all know. Laos, more than 30% of the GDP is Chinese debt. And a new railway line has come, and this debt will multiply into from Laos is a landlocked country. They have brought from Yunnan that particular railway line into Laos for what? To bring in Chinese goods, and obviously not to take goods from Laos to China. We know that. See, the entire OBR is meant to exploit the world over. All gullible nations have really what you call have been a part of it. Then so Trump was right when he went back. And one more thing I forgot to tell you. The Chinese have started blackmailing with their strategy to this one. When South Korea deployed THAAD missiles, theater high altitude air defense missiles of US, they stopped the tourism into South Korea in order to control the South Korean behavior. Controlling Japanese behavior by stopping export of rare earth elements. They have stopped the export, so that because that is the basic foundation of entire these electronic industries are based on rare earth. You know. Then Philippines, when they protested, the banana import from banana was stopped, and the entire Mindanao where the bananas are produced, farmers didn't know what to, suddenly stopped tomorrow, not after 1 month, didn't know what to do with the lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of tons of banana what was there. Canadian intelligence has reported that China has interfered with their 2019 elections. Huh? And so also New Zealand and the US. So obviously the interdependency has become so much that it has come to the stage of blackmailing, exploitation. And free trade agreements also as depressed wages. Migrations have taken place. It's globalization. Illegal migration is a product of globalization where people go from poorer place to the richer place. And all this, if you see, and then there are number of these agreements, free trade agreements, RCEP, NAFTA, whatever you want to call. Then change in the world. So, but at the same time, globalization has run out of steam. Yes. Okay, is it reversible? No. If will it change? It will change. It will dynamism in the society will keep on changing. All this yeah, onshore, offshoring has going back. Offshoring of this motor vehicles industries which has come into China are going back. Now they may make it very nicely. Some are withdrawing. Even Apple is coming out of China, and Qdot and all is doing a what you called asset light strategy. Means slowly the assets are moving out of China because it is the very policy is unsustainable. So India took two brilliant steps in this globalization. You have to, whoever is the policy makers, we have to commend it. First and foremost, India did not join the OBR. There was a lot of persuasion. We had a good excuse that CPEC violated our sovereignty. Next good thing Aadi we did is we did not join the RCEP, that regional comprehensive economic partnership of these ASEAN countries with China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand joined it. But we're adamant because these 15 countries, out of them China is included, other 14 countries will rue their day. The cheap Chinese toxic goods will come without any without any duty and flood the market and destroy their entire domestic industries. And India did not join. You have to really look. This is a good thing which India did. I want to give whoever kudos to them. Now coming to where we have failed. We have failed in rehauling our supply chain management with China. Our traders are buying. This is one thing which I feel our country has to take immediate action. Put higher duties on them, and don't worry about any other thing. Make it discourage the Chinese goods coming. It has increased more than the pre-COVID times. Adi, it has increased. Now the total turnover is around $130 billion, with the profits increasing from the Chinese side. And lastly, the adverse effect which you told me to say is the climatic explosion. It's climate is absolutely every development, material resources which are being exploited is taking place at the cost of environmental degradation. And we, the smaller nations, the island nations, the ever rising sea levels, then the EQI index, air quality index, which is rising due to pollution, the industrial exploitation of materials, deforestation, destroying the fauna, flora, precipitation getting reduced, climatic changes which is taking place, the global temperatures rising. All this will have a very, very heavy cost on humanity. That's where I think we should do it with a lot of deliberations because we are already paying a heavy price for it.
Sir, when one talks about globalism and hegemony, I think the viewpoint is always the Western viewpoint. You've actually twisted it around and actually said that, yeah, the West tried to do it, but the Chinese have done it. So that's what I take
Yes.
from the
Mm,
answer.
mm.
uh, Having said that, sir, now the Chinese issue is, of course, a very, very keen issue, and they did it very silently, whereas the Western powers have kind of done it overtly with, you mentioned philanthropists and you mentioned certain influential entities within this game trying to figure this out. A lot of blame today is also on the fact that those philanthropists from the West are in bed with the Chinese. So that's where the kind of this thing happened. But I want to kind of ask you, sir, uh, the globalism agenda and the hegemony, considering what I just said as a baseline, sir, where we see these philanthropists aiding China, and we know of people like George Soros who've actually
Yes.
said that China needs to be a part of this global world order. It's not going to be aware, and China within its current system needs to be a part of the global world order. So he did not push the CCP away. He actually appreciates that. How? What is the difference between Western hegemony and globalism today, sir?
See, let's put it this way. I might be out of tune with what my views are, but I would like to express it. At the start of globalization, the US and the Europe had the technology. The US and Europe had the capitals. Both the money and the technology and the capital, when it was there, naturally they will call the shots. No country, as I told you, is really doing a work in order to benefit the society. Ultimately, even whatever aid and everything comes, it is with the personal interest. That is, please accept it from me, right? Whichever it is. But I have found the Western nations, I might be a partial or whatever, my lord, they are enlightened despots. Now, they came to Iraq on an absolutely wrong premise, okay? But, but, wrong premise. Absolutely wrong to have disposed of Saddam Hussein with a absolutely misleading evidence which was shown and which was accepted by the entire West. But ultimately, they left a functional democracy, and Iraq is there. What it is, it's working. Afghanistan, I already told you, it was a legitimate whatever destruction of the terrorists which had to take place because they were giving aid, but ultimately, you are back in square one. But at least you proved the point that any terrorist who will destroy the try to do such a terrorism activity in the West, because the terrorism has also Adi has got globalized. So the entire global terrorists from Afghanistan, those Al Qaeda and all, were able to hit. Now ISIS is trying to hit everywhere. So globalism is also a part of terrorism is also become an adjunct to globalism, where the infrastructure, the communication, transportation facilities, which are and the financial transaction of getting narcotics, the money. Baghdadi is to sell the oil from the Syrian and Iraqi oil fields from Mosul and all, and then made money, and that what you call oil is available to anyone. It is open in international market. What are you talking? The pirates of in the South China Sea used to take the ships across to Hainan, that is the Chinese island, and used to empty it out and take money from the private traders and go. So what I said, the entire thing was a obnoxious system which had prevailed, and hence we cannot say that anyone. So when the US came, they did what they can. They established. See, frankly, I am very give a lot of credit to US for building Afghanistan to that level where the Taliban came in. That was very little US could do unless they have to really fight the Taliban with their own weapons and arms. So they were also battle fatigue. They left, and it is left to terrorists. But lot of improvement, development, societal change of the national army, women empowerment, building bridges and infrastructures, electricity coming into Kabul from Uzbekistan, which India was also a part of. A lot of things were done. So ultimately, I cannot and spent $3 billion, 3,000 odd casualties in terms of death, 20,000 in terms of wounded. They paid a price for it. Whereas China is doing all this without having to paying a bit of price, only exploiting. So if you say the US and the West were hegemonist, they were hegemonist right from the colonial times. They were hegemonist when they took slaves across Africa and
Yeah.
then used them in their what you call plantations, isn't it? So I am not at all condoning the hegemonism of the West. They are still, even US is today It has lost its power, unfortunately. It has not been able to really bring the oil prices down, yeah, by whatever. I read your wonderful article what you had written on the captain of the Russian oil. He is actually a humor in uniform. Humor in what is it? Firstly, he says, I won't buy oil from Russia. Okay. Then he buys oil indirectly from Russia from different source. The same Russian oil coming. Then when I want to buy Russian oil, he says, no, the cap is $60 per barrel. It makes no sense when I'm not a part of your entire caboodle. And India rightly rejected, no, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that way. We make our price at our own level. In order to ease the prices and to see that the Russian oil prices go down, Biden went to the Middle East, requested the Saudi Arabians to increase the OPEC to increase the oil production. That was not done. Later, now China went and came and further a request was sent, will you increase the oil production? They have further what you call curtailed the oil production. When they curtail, OPC curtails the oil production, what happens? It's a global phenomena. And we
That's
are talking of globalism. So the oil supply will be less, and Russian oil will cost more. If Russian oil costs more, they will get more money to fight the war. So entire, whatever has happened, the reverse is also taking place. So no
yeah.
one, I don't know if I and you can think a bit on it. Why are they not thinking on these terms? I don't know.
That's
Huh?
why I wrote
Or
that
or
article.
there is a agenda behind an agenda. I don't know. We have to see, or we are too naive and they are too well entrenched in the world dynamics. They know a lot. Let's accept that. Next, who are the globalists, if you really ask me? See, globalists, all are globalists till the time they take advantage of the globalism. Okay? Even a
Yeah,
small nation is a globalist because industries are coming to him, he is getting cheaper goods, his people are getting employed, and they are producing something, they are exporting something, their poverty is alleviated. So, a small nation is a globalist. Chinese are giving them money, OBR, this one, and then ultimately, when they have fallen into a deep well, they don't know where are we. So that will happen subsequently if you do not have forethought. The real globalists are who, shall I say? The authors, economists, academicians, left wing liberals, armchair theorists, left wingers. All these are the globalists because they have no love for their own nation. They are just trying to say, let the world so and so. Coming back to the most important breed, most important species with special breed politicians. Politicians want globalization till the time they get fruit. But
first
no one wants their political authority to be eroded due to the economic dominance by the globe. They do not want their economic strengths to be taken over globally. Obviously, their political authority to win elections next year, next 5 years, will suffer in their own country.
yeah,
Why do you think Trump constructed a wall? Why did he say Americanism or globalism? Why did Britain come out of the Brexit
that's it.
when there is a European Union was functioning well? Because that European Union started having a bit overarching political authority over Britain. And they lost their strategic autonomy to pursue their policy as their own because they have to do a policy in conjunction with the 28 odd countries of European Union. So that curtails their strategic autonomy to pursue their narrow national interests. Forget globalism. It's only in Upanishads we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and keep on talking. Any our foreign service officer who has come out of that Missouri Academy, you ask him what is his name, he'll say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So, so that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is no more there. It is a concept. You see, at the concept. Here, Pakistan is sending terrorists, sending drones, sending bloody captured with the POK in their hands. China coming in China with so much 30 Atsakin in their hands, and Bangladesh demographic invasion. Indian Ocean is getting militarized. Where is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? So, what I'm trying to say is that these are all concepts, but ultimately nations pursue their national interest relentlessly. In order to pursue that relentlessly their national interest, they need to have strategic autonomy. Nations who have thought deeply over it are following a policy of a controlled globalism where they only take the fruit in order without losing their independence to take decisions which are in the interest of their country.
I think there's a brilliantly put, sir, because at the end of it, what we see today is it's a blurred line between hegemony, globalism, and free trade, liberalism. I'm not sure which one is the ism which fits into this system that we see in the world, but it's. This is the question that I've kind of pondered upon quite a bit, sir, and you kind of hinted on it in the middle that what is a globalism cause where the globalism cause itself is damaging your pre-existing setup. Uh, by the question that I want to ask is that has globalism as a cause become so overextended and has encompassed the entire framework of a country, where you also again hinted that the European Union has started pulling certain political strings, which a lot of countries may find it to be infringing within their, this thing. So, bottom line, has globalism overextended itself to be useful? Of course, as you said, you can't just wish it away. But do you agree with this statement, sir?
See, it has overextended beyond its elasticity. As I told you, everyone has taken advantage of it. China. One more statistics I'll give you. From 1980 to 2021, I told you its GDP increased by 92 times. Its per capita GDP also increased by 64 times. So why do you think the Chinese are not happy with the rise of globalism? So, yeah, but the way I told you of the blackmailing tactics of China, the predatory economics, the economic colonization which has taken place. You ask the other countries where go to Sri Lanka and tell China is very good country. The people will answer. So ultimately, the overextension has taken place. It has not, but let us give globalism and Aadi some credit of getting the poverty elevation of millions and millions of people across the world. See, everything has its both pluses and minuses. Am I right? So we have exploited the places. And now, once you have reached that level where it is overextended and where it is not adversely affecting you, that is the place in that particular section you have to withdraw and pursue a place where it is advantageous to you.
Selective.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, you don't now. I don't have to, because let's say someone is producing a thing much cheaper. I don't have to reinvent a wheel, isn't it? Other than higher technology, you have to reinvent. Cryogenic engines, you have to do it yourself. But what is cheaply available, if it is moving across the border without destroying your domestic industries, it has to be there. Let it be this one, what you call a globalism which is planned, organized, so that it doesn't hurt your domestic industries, it doesn't hurt your domestic wages, it doesn't hurt your employment within your own country. All this has to be seen by the each power, each country. The governments have to see it and make utilize the advantages of the other. So this is what now we are still what Harley Davidson motorcycles. Many people in India want it. So we have put 200% tax or whatever it is. But at the same time, it is available. From your side, you have got the tax. From the US side, here they have exported it. And from the individual requirement of a particular individual, his aspiration is also fulfilled. You can't say you do only wear khadi, you only wear that. Let the individual desires and aspirations get fulfilled. We have to make a society in such a way that without harming that individual personality of every individual has to blossom to his full capacity. Why not? So if they, so it has to be, no, globalism cannot, as I said, you cannot be wished away. It's so, as I told you, the entire Ethiopia, yeah, the entire Africa has been neo-colonized by China. I have given you all the statistics of how many $1 billion they owe. Do you think these nations can ever pay back this $1 billion, billions of dollars? So they will be what you call in. And one more thing, in United Nations, China has got a huge following by these. In the General Assembly, they will all raise their hands for China. So this is how, diplomatic leverages which you have taken out by what you call economically exploiting them, strategically having bases around. So all this China has done. So it has, as you rightly said, it has overextended. Now the countries have to take stock of globalism and decide what part of globalism they wish to pursue and what part they have to curtail so that their national interest is not jeopardized.
Because one thing that we hear from the regular proponents, if I may, of globalism is the collective good, sir. Which brings me to the last question of my talk, of my session with you. The collective good, as per se, as a concept, which is, I mean, Minister Shankar actually put it across in a better way, and he said, when Europe says they have a problem, it's the world's problem, but the world's problem isn't Europe's problem. So it's the collective good that is being spoken about. The war in Ukraine today, sir, uh, is basically brought down, and I'm not talking about the military situation as per se, but the diplomatic and the globalist situation, if I may. It has come to a point of not a confrontation, but a standoff between the collective West and the global South, uh, where the global South seems to be pushing back against the globalist agendas of the West. Although you very clearly elucidated that the collective, the global South, where the Chinese are the biggest part of it, have actually benefited massively from this globalism cause. The fight between the Russians and the West today is being termed as a pushback from this whole system which has been set up. This uh, agreement of sorts between certain powers to kind of grow together and give mutual advantages, leaving certain things out. So it's not a free globalist market. So do you agree that this war has been rightly termed as a fight between the actual free market and the controlled free market that we see in front of us today, sir?
Yeah. Acha. Yeah, a beautiful question. Firstly, let me tell you, the myth there won't be a conventional war has been broken. That is completely, it's no, now is all cyber war, huh? Now there is everything is what you call digitally, we'll do it, we'll disrupt the banking system, we'll do this, and we'll coerce. All this is, so ultimately it is the boot on the ground, artillery fire, taking one hill here and one town there, one village there, one river bank there, crossing that river, physical movement of troops have to take place. So the very idea of that hybrid warfare will come, gray zone warfare, that's all there. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to say. But ultimately, when you come down, the myth that there won't be a conventional war, more so in a country like, in a continent like Europe, has been bursted. If that is so, why should there not be a Sino-Indian war? Tell me. If in Europe it is not, Who will bother of India, China when the critical area of entire West is under threat? So that has been broken, and rightly said by you. Entire West has ganged up together. Now the Americans will fight the war till the last Ukrainian is dead. So that's what it is. So they will keep on giving the arms and weapons and all. So it is the entire ganging up of the West. And if you really look, Russia, Russia is fighting the battle alone in terms of resources, equipment.
Yeah.
One odd Iranian drones or Turkish drones or something, they might have bought it, whatever, that they are at liberty to buy. But there is no other power which is really giving them arms, weapons, ammunition. They are fighting their own battle. Of course, Russia has got the vast resources. In smaller skirmishes, Zelensky may say, we took back this village or we took back this band. Huh? But the overall, Putin has made a famous statement. I don't know how many of you observed it. Huh? If Russia is attacked, the other side will not exist, or something words to that effect. So he is
Yes.
clearly hinting at nuclear war. So no country, neither Biden or the Western Europe or anyone dare do anything to Russia. Simple as that. So this, unfortunately, their ground forces have not been able to do, because even if it's a great power, the infantry, the armor, the arty have to do their job on ground. This
Mhm.
I want to tell all our strategic community also, who says wars will not be there. Huh? It will, and all, our National Security Council and all should open up their eyes and see a conventional war when it takes place. It is boots on the ground, the RT, the mortar, the rockets, the missiles, and anti-tank guns, the armor. Everything comes into the action in order to take one hill or half a hill or half a village. That is one thing which everyone has to understand. I hope our strategic community is listening to me. They can bombast me later, but this point has to be driven home. Then now what has happened? This entire Ukraine war has created a topsy turvy in terms of the world economy. IMF forecast for 2023, it will be a very sad day for the world. There will be famines. The food grains will not be there. There will be certain shortage of fossil fuel, and the world will go through a trauma in 2023. But the effects of the war, the Ukraine so far was delivering all these grains and oil seeds and all in plenty, what was harvested before. From after the war, the harvesting and all has been reduced. So the after effects of Ukraine is going to be felt in 2023, the IMF forecast. So it will get into global energy crisis, global food crisis, global inflation. US is subsidizing the fossil fuel of the Americans to the extent $20 billion
Yeah.
annually. $20 billion, the fossil fuel, that is the oil which is derived, is being subsidized. Then, and that yeah, what you call Europe and all have raised alarms. There is a split between the what Europe is thinking and what America is thinking. Here is what you call giving aid, and the same oil which US wants to send to Europe would be very highly costly coming across Atlantic. Huh? That by the fracturing that
Oil.
rocks and all, they make the oil. It is one of the largest oil producers. Huh?
Mm.
Huh? They're largest oil producer now. So it wants to sell oil to US and to Europe, and it doesn't want Europe to buy oil from Russia. So this has created such a division. So supply chain management, there will be a serious disruption of supply chain management next year, unless you are able to do it now. Now India has to do it. It has to come out of a alternative supply chain, then depend on China and enrich China. So all these are after effects of energy sector. then Biden's green subsidy is just not being liked. And bind and just see this entire West versus NATO. Buying energy from Russia, they are buying all oil gas from Russia and arming Ukraine. In one side, they are giving weapons out here, and here other side they are giving resources in order to make weapons, make use. So, what is it? If you really see, it's a world of contradictions. No one anticipated it. No one knows what to do. The winters are coming in a very big way. There is no way they can reduce the oil and gas, whether it comes directly from Russia or indirectly from Russia. So I don't think what you call the entire grain export, which is happening due to actually a arrangement between Russia and Ukraine. Russia can stop it anytime and cause a global famine. Global famine. Even it will have effect on India also. Oil seeds is to come from the west to us somehow, but our logistic management has been well. So far, though the edible oil prices have risen, we are not being able to. We are still able to provide. And Turkey's drones are being tried. Iran's drone is being tried. Everyone, you find that experiment. One most important thing, Adi, who is watching the entire thing very intently? That is
China.
China. If they can go across a land border in Ukraine at bit power and get bought down, how will I go 100 kilometers across the Taiwan Strait and launch an Taiwan, what you call, war against Taiwan? If all these 20, 30, 40 countries keep on giving arms and weapons and weaponry to Taiwan, where will the Chinese offensive land? So they are the early watchers. Now, what you call lightning of strategic assets, which is taking place by the European car industries from China, is on the probability that if China launches an offensive on Taiwan and the sanctions come on China, what is left for us? It is better to withdraw from here. So that is also there is a linkage. Entire global chain is working in a random fashion, very ad hoc fashion. Don't fellows don't know what to do. Will China really go for Taiwan? Huh? They are legally they have made constitutionally they have enabled the offensive. Everything is fine. Now only a decision has to be taken, isn't it? So and another term which you used, which I want to use in the article, that we as a and the world as such has to decouple from China. This is the word in which you used in the article. We have to decouple from China in terms of economy now as far as possible, so that we are really not dependent upon this hostile country. Absolutely. And that Europe and all are already doing it.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I was a bit disappointed when the German chancellor came and visited US of China, and Xi Jinping went, and the entire Middle East are supporting China for without knowing its long-term intent. Then RCP, very disappointing was New Zealand and Australia also joining the melee of RCEP. Huh? Means what are they up to? Are they very clear in the policy? Do they need to isolate China or not? Are they really decoupling with China, or they are decoupling in one way and joining up in the other way? So ultimately, I can only sum up that countries have to safeguard the strategic autonomy of their respective countries in this war of Ukraine. The Ukraine war will create a lot of energy crisis, food crisis, strategic crisis, then political crisis, and in the United Nations we have to go number of times we have supported Russia. So there is a entire what you call turmoil is going on in the entire global landscape. If you really see, there might be new geopolitical realignments which may take place depending upon what is the result. So India has to watch and really plan its future actions very well. And most important, decoupling from China is a must in order to find alternative supplies to us and increase our domestic. Because what we buy from China are furniture, these small scale goods, they should be
Consumer.
straight away banned, and domestic industries should be made use of.
You're right, sir. As a matter of fact, we've reduced our API dependency on China, but consumer goods are kind of, picking
Absolutely.
up. And there's a widespread reason that the Indian industry has not been able to cope up to that. But sir, thank you so much. This has been enlightening discussion, because the what we see in front of us today seems to be the battle of, if I may, the existence of the current form of globalism, which has become so merged and blended into the vested interests, if I may, of few, for certain benefits. I am not sure what those benefits are, because I can't see them myself. And you also elucidated that you and I could sit down and figure out this is what is wrong. We can't see any benefit. Why can't they? I mean, that's something which is very weird to me. But overall, sir, this has been a wonderful, eye-opening discussion, because, as a matter of fact, when people talk about globalism, uh, and even I do, I always put it across as Western hegemony or Western globalism, and the kind of controls that the West tries to do on you. For example, the Indian purchase of Russian oil. But the factor that the Chinese have been the silent most player and taken advantage of this entire game to bring themselves up to be what they are today. So that tells us the three warfare strategies of China. They've used us against us and benefit for themselves. And I think that's the moot point that I'm going to take from this discussion. Very, very critical for us to understand, comprehend, and plan for in the future, because it's going to become a challenge. Because the minute the focus gets removed from Russia, we all know the next focus is coming towards Asia. So it's going to be either India's opportunity or folly. So once again, thank you so much. Always enlightening to have a conversation with you, and to learn from you. I request, of course, to have lots more. And till next time, sir, for another insightful conversation. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you, Adi. My privilege. Jai Hind to you.
Thank you, sir.